Well, guys, welcome to our inaugural Team Tastemakers here at Galavant. I'm Christine Drinan, the founder of Galavant, and you're probably wondering why the heck do you even care about our Tastemakers series? Well, one, we are the resource for luxury travel and lifestyle, and we have the most incredible team of people. Over 15 years, we've built this amazing group. And we recently had a brand new managing editor at large, Gabby Shacknai, join us. And I cannot tell you how excited I am because she's essentially made my life 1,000% easier. And it's always amazing when you have great team members who really know their stuff and who have fascinating stories themselves be able to share and also lead the team so we can bring you the best in travel. So, Gabby, thank you so much for joining us. You are our first, you're our guinea pig on this Tastemaker series for our team.
Well, I'm honored to be the first. I know I won't be the last.
I know exactly. And you're going to be doing a couple of these interviews too. We're going to tag team this throughout the course of the next few months because we have 38 people on our team. And it is a village of people that it takes to bring Galavant together. And Gabby, I would love you to share with everyone how you ended up with us here at Galavant.
Yeah. So, I mean, like all good things in life, sort of by accident, I have been in the travel space and a writer for a very long time. I have, about a decade of experience in the industry. I was at Condé Nast for what feels like a lifetime ago, and I have been freelance for the last 7 or so years. And during that time, I have helped manage different travel teams. I have written quite a bit myself, but luxury travel is something that I have always really enjoyed both personally and professionally. So when I learned about Galavant and this opportunity, it really just seemed like kismet.
Well, was there anything specific that really brought you or resonated with you to luxury travel besides the obvious, like who does not love to stay in great hotels?
Yeah, it's true. Twist my arm. I mean, I've been very lucky throughout my life to really have traveled since a young age, but I think what really made me fall in love with travel to, the extreme that I now love it was living abroad during school. I did my undergrad and my first master's in the UK at the University of Edinburgh. And, while Scotland itself is great, the real highlight of my 4 years there was just being able to travel all around Europe. So every year before I would go back to school in September, my mom and I would do a big trip to a few different cities. And, because I was with my mom, I got to experience it in a way that I probably wouldn't have been able to on a college budget. But even throughout the year, I would just hop on a quick train ride or plane ride and be in a different country and really, get to learn so much about that place, but also myself. So I think it's something that I have always loved, but that was probably what really cemented it all for me.
Well, it's really cool that you bring up your family because you shared something with me when we were talking through the calendar a few weeks ago about how your family's involved in the car racing sport.
Yes, yes. Involved is probably an understatement. My stepdad has been a long time race car driver himself in endurance racing, but as of the last, gosh, almost 10 years or so, he has been the owner and manager of the team. So we have a really amazing team called the Heart of Racing, which is Aston Martin's endurance team. So endurance meaning they're doing like anywhere between 6 hour to 24-hour races. Definitely not your little 2 hour F1 sprint, but it's taken him and by nature of being his family, all of us really all around the world. There are a couple races that we go to every year. And of course, all of the drivers are from, far off lands. We have a Brazilian driver, a Spanish driver, lots of Brits. My stepdad is British himself, but it's just been such an amazing experience. And, as a bit of a sports fiend, I love it, but it's also just such a great way to really see the world.
Oh my God. Well, I cannot wait for to join you on these travels
Yes.
through your Insta and through the stories that you're going to create for us on Galavant. Because when I found that out about you, I was like, oh my gosh, I really never when we first met, I was like, she's it. Like, if we're going to do a whole nother segment on entrepreneurship where sometimes you just have to hire the person that is the reach person for you to be able to bring onto the team because like what you have brought in such a short period of time. But when you told me that your family had a background in racing, I was like, wow, that is So cool. And that we're, actually brings us to like how we're doing this interview today. Like I love the Vogue 72 questions. I don't know if you've seen that
Oh
because
yeah.
you learn such cool things about the person. Like I never would have known that your family was part of the racing until it just randomly came up. So we're going to ask you a few questions, a little rapid fire, if you
Let's do it.
to us. And we'd love to learn more about you. So you talked about your family. What's your earliest childhood travel memory?
I like I said, I've been very lucky to have traveled since I was extremely young. I think my first international trip was when I was about 3 months old, which is obviously I have no memory of. But I do have a lot of memories of going to Hawaii as a kid. I grew up in Arizona, so it was a much more doable flight than it would be here from New York. There was, a hotel on the Big Island, the Four Seasons, that had outdoor showers that as a kid and frankly as an adult too was just the coolest thing ever, and that was kind of the first time I had seen that. I think it was also a time when fewer hotels were kind of leaning into that trend, so that's definitely an early memory. I also remember it must have been like 7 or 8 when I went to Europe for the first time properly, at least, and my mom, my stepdad, my brother, and I went to London and to Paris. And I just remember my mom and I spending the entire day at, the Louvre and Musée d'Orsay, just truly gallivanting around every museum we could find, pun intended. And meanwhile, my stepdad and my brother went to an amusement park and ate baguettes with butter the entire day. And honestly, I think in like 25 years, not much has changed.
I mean, talk, what a great way to start out, though, your trips to Europe. And so, since you had those travels as a child, how many countries have you been to?
This is something I should absolutely know the answer to just off cuff, and I honestly don't. I feel like every couple of years I have the urge to go through and count, but that number never seems to stay with me. I think it's somewhere between 50 and 60 at this point, if you include all of like the small islands in the Caribbean and whatnot. But honestly, your guess is as good as mine.
Well, of those, what's your favorite destination?
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is a question I'm asked so frequently being in travel, and one that I still just always struggle to answer. I've been to so many amazing places, and I think beyond the places, so much of it is who I'm with and what I'm doing. I think I went on my first safari for in last December in South Africa, and I have been an animal lover my entire life. A safari was a type of trip that I had been wanting to do for a very, very long time. And that to me was just the most surreal, but also very real and grounding experience of my life. I think just driving through and within 5 minutes seeing every kind of species, and you see the best of animal nature, and you see these newborn babies and their mothers caring for them and the whole sort of herd gathering around. And then of course you also see the other extreme where lions are actively on the hunt, and as a Leo myself, I was trying to kind of digest that. But I think that to me was just the most otherworldly, memorable experience. It was truly unlike anything I had ever done. And I think I could go on safari every month for the rest of my life and still never tire of it.
And you won't. I mean, there are so many safaris out there that every experience is different. And so, like, that brings me to, do you have a favorite hotel? Was it the safari hotel you stayed at, or do you have another favorite hotel?
I have been to so many amazing hotels, some that, are just achieve the absolute pinnacle in luxury. But to me, the hotels that really have stuck with me the most are the ones that just have that very personal touch that almost make you feel like a member of the family. And there's one hotel in particular that I visited. It's a boutique hotel. It's not associated with a big name or anything, but it's called Sori, Bali. And it's really in the middle of nowhere in Bali. It's in this region called Tabanan that is significantly less developed than some of the other more popular parts of Bali. But this hotel, of course, was beautiful. It's designed by this world-renowned architect and designer, but it was just the way that the staff members really treated us. They went above and beyond at every step. They were anticipating our every need. I was there with my best friend whose name is also Gabby. So we sort of became the Gabbies around the resort, and every member of the staff, greeted us as such. And I loved it so much that I actually sent my parents there about a year later. And when they were asked how they learned about the hotel and said, oh, our daughter came, the hotel members were all saying, "Oh, the Gabbies," and they remembered us, just as vividly a year plus later as they did while we were there. So that to me, I think was definitely one of the more standout hotels. There have also, of course, been hotels that are just so breathtakingly beautiful, the safari camps very much included. I think one of my favorite hotels architecturally is the Four Seasons in Budapest. It's just so stunning. And to be honest, I like Budapest. I had a great time there, but it wasn't so much the trip that stuck with me so much as the just the hotel and the grandeur of it itself.
Those are such special places that you mentioned. And speaking of special places, what do you think, what destination to you is the most underrated destination?
It's so hard because I think social media has really made every destination just so accessible, for better or worse. I think, there aren't necessarily entire countries that I would consider underrated, but there are a lot of places that are maybe off the beaten path within those countries. I was in Thailand some years ago, for instance, and, of course, did Bangkok and Chiang Mai and all the usual suspects, but it was this day trip that we took really to the mountains in the absolute middle of nowhere, almost on the border of some of the northernmost countries surrounding Thailand. And we were in this river in the mountains. It was just the most unreal. Like, I felt like I was on another planet. And I still look back at those photos and videos and I'm just in disbelief that I was able to experience that firsthand. And I think that's true of a lot of destinations. They're the obvious hot spots and, that everyone kind of flocks to, but it's really when you ask the locals, like, hey, what do you like to do? What's special here? That I think sometimes you wind up in these places that you just never could have imagined even existed, let alone visiting.
Well, now we're going to spill some tea. The most overrated destination.
Okay, I do have a very immediate answer to this. I am not the biggest fan of Santorini. I think it's beautiful. Look, the sunsets are out of this world, but it is the most touristy place I have ever been. And the only time I've enjoyed it, the only experience I enjoyed there was staying at a hotel that was very much out of the way, not in Ia. And we regrettably went into Ia for the day. And I felt like it was my version of Dante's Hell. Like it was really not for me. But I also am someone who tends to avoid overly populated, overly touristy places. So that to me was like the pinnacle of overrated. I can't say it would take a lot for me to return, but I think there are so many other places in Greece and elsewhere that are just so much more worthwhile.
And so now you've been to all these places around the world, you have picked up some incredible travel tips. So I want to ask you a few questions so we can give everyone the right direction on when they're planning trips. What are your non-negotiables when you are planning a trip anywhere, whether it's with your plus one, your friends, your family? What are the things that people should be looking out for?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, it really varies so much destination to destination. I myself am a major planner. I'm kind of the member of my friend groups and family who makes a minute by minute schedule and sends it out to everyone with a packing list months in advance. So, I often have to kind of catch myself and make sure that I'm not over planning and that I'm still leaving time to really explore and to fall into some of these maybe more unexpected experiences. But the thing that I think absolutely should always be planned, if there is a restaurant or two, depending on how long you're going for, where the location is, that you think will be difficult to get into, make that booking as soon as you can. If, the day takes a turn and you wind up doing something else and you can no longer go, you can always cancel. But I have just been so many places where, there were restaurants I was dying to try, whether I knew about them in advance or just learned about them while I was there. And it was too late because I didn't think ahead and make a booking. So whether it's a place you want to try, or you're just calling up the concierge of your hotel, asking your friends who've been to this place before for recommendations, I think absolutely make those bookings in advance.
That is such great advice. Now, are you somebody who checks bags or do you not check? Do you carry on?
I've gotten better at this with with age. I would say for the most part, I am a carry-on girl. Having grown up in a divorced household from age 2 onwards, I am an excellent packer, and I really try to put my skills to the test with every trip I take. There are some trips, of course, that, require a little bit more baggage. I think anytime I'm going somewhere for more than 2 weeks, there's no way I'm getting by with just a carry-on. And similarly, if I'm going somewhere during the winter that requires a lot of boots and coats and things that take up more space, I'll try my darndest. I'll try to wear the coat and the boot on the plane, but often that is also a time that calls for a checked bag. But, I've just, like so many, been scorned with the checked bag game. So I think when I can have it with me at all times, that's definitely my preferred route.
Well, whether you're checking bags or not checking bags and just carrying on, what is the one thing that you cannot travel without?
So, the most literal answer to this question, since I'm a type 1 diabetic, I have to travel with all of my diabetes supplies, which can take a significant portion of my luggage and is the most annoying thing in the world. But apart from that, the thing that is just a total non negotiable that I always have, not only with me, but literally on me on every flight is compression socks. I absolutely swear by them. I have been wearing them my entire life, having gone to school abroad and obviously taking the long flights back and forth that come with that. I learned very early on that circulation is something that you should not take for granted on these longer flights. So anytime I'm on a plane for more than 3 hours, I am wearing my compression socks. I would wear an entire compression suit from head to toe if I could.
That is such a great tip. In fact, we're going to have to do a shop this interview.
Yes.
Your favorite compression socks and your favorite tips and tricks for things that you can bring on your carry-on to make that flight more bearable, because those flights are killer, especially with how many you take.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And anything you can do to preserve your body, but also ensure that, you're in the best way possible by the time you arrive to your destination is always a good idea.
We have so many cool stories because you actually travel. You see the world in such a unique fashion in a way that our readers both aspire and also are inspired by. And a lot of what we do is luxury, and luxury has many different definitions. But with how long you've worked in the luxury sector, what has changed the most, do you think, in luxury travel since you started out this business?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it's difficult to look at luxury travel and not see it as a pre-pandemic, post-pandemic sort of thing, just because that time really did change the way that everybody travels. And I think really since the pandemic in the last, let's say, 5, 6 years, the thing that I see driving people to go anywhere in the world more and more is just this experience, whether it's I don't know, something like a safari where you're literally experiencing the entire animal kingdom and living in the midst of the Lion King, or it's like a spa retreat. People want to do something. I think long gone are the days of just sort of going to a relaxing beach destination and sitting there for a week straight. There's nothing wrong with that. I love a beach vacation, but even on those, I find that we're often presented with the opportunity to do other things, whether it's a hike or, you know, I'm doing a chocolate tasting at a wellness retreat next week. So there's always something. And I think people want to do things that are out of the box, things that they can't just do in the comfort of their own homes. And that I think is a trend that, I personally hope will stay around for a really long time, if not forever.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And with the luxury hotels nowadays, there's so many luxury hotels, and that word is used so just like an everyday conversation, like it's not even really anything nowadays. So, like for you, what does luxury mean when it comes to a hotel, and how does a hotel really separate itself, in your opinion, when they call themselves a luxury hotel?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I think anytime a hotel goes that extra mile, whether it's noticing the fact after scrolling my Instagram quickly that I am obsessed with my dog and therefore having a photo of him or a photo of the two of us in my room when I arrive, which is something anytime that happens, I'm like, oh my God, he's here with me. It's the best feeling in the world. Or if it's noticing, that I'm interested in a particular activity or food while I'm there. A couple months ago, I was in the Maldives, for instance, and I learned that there was a tea tasting and a tea sommelier at the resort. And of course, this was unbeknownst to the staff there on my way in, because why would this possibly come up? But they noticed throughout the course of my time there that I was a huge tea drinker and I was really interested in the history of tea and the making of tea. So they went ahead and arranged this tea tasting for me. And that wound up being like probably one of the top three highlights of that trip. So I think anytime someone is really just paying attention to the little things and acting on it, that to me is true luxury. And it doesn't matter, how beautiful the hotel room is, how comfortable the bed is. If the service isn't there, then that to me is no better than staying at, a Motel 6.
I completely agree. And that's very different, I think, going back to our first question, from maybe 20 years ago in travel, where it wasn't necessarily about that really welcoming service. It was maybe a different type of service that they had before that
Yeah.
was maybe less personalized. Like these are really incredible places that you've stayed. And in these luxury hotels that you stayed at recently, have you noticed any trends that seem to go from one type of property to another in the luxury space?
I mean, I think in general, throughout the last few years, we have really just seen this convergence of travel and wellness. And, as someone whose background is in both travel and beauty and wellness, I love to see it. It's really interesting to me how we're not just seeing the onslaught of these new like wellness destinations unto themselves, but also hotels that have been around for 100 years are now building out wellness programming or physical spas themselves that are just above and beyond. It's no longer just, okay, here's a great massage and a facial, and maybe we're using ingredients from the surrounding areas, but they have the cold plunges, the saunas, the infrared. Like if I go to a hotel these days and there's not a sauna, that's like, okay, why am I paying so much a night here? That's just like a no-brainer. And I think 10, 20 years ago, that was absolutely not the case. And you see that kind of carrying over to other parts of a hotel stay as well, not just like the spa and the fitness, but the menu curation, even what's in the mini bars sometimes, or like the pillow. I think we've seen such a rise in sleep tourism, and that is, of course, kind of a microcosm of wellness travel on a larger scale. But the fact that you can even have a preference of pillow now at most luxury hotels is amazing to me, and I think it's promising. I think we're sometimes inclined to sacrifice our normal health routines when we travel, and things like this not only allow you to continue your normal routines, but also enhance them, even when you're not going to like a wellness destination.
We need to do this again and talk like a whole segment on wellness because
Yes, anytime.
I mean, it's such a burgeoning industry. I think that's one of the biggest things that we've seen post 2020 in
Yeah.
travel is that wellness has become just a baseline expectation. And the industry itself is growing to trillions of dollars, which is something that I think is great because longevity and build like living a life that is a healthy life is one of those things that is so important to integrate, not only in every day, but also even when you travel. You just can't let it all
Yeah.
go to heck. Though, of course, sometimes you are going letting it all go to heck because why not? Who does not want
Course. Look, when
french
you're
fries
when
on
the
the table?
place and the time calls for it, of course you want to have all of the pina coladas on the beach. Of course you want to try every fried food at the street market. But the fact that you can have both and that they coexist is really just expansive and incredible.
Well, we are seriously doing like a whole nother sesh on wellness because there's so much to say about that. And so, like, speaking of just travels, you are on the road a lot. Is there a dream destination bucket list trip that you have on your list that you have not yet done?
There are a couple. I think at the very tippy top of my list is Gorilla's Nest in Rwanda. As I said, I am just a true animal lover, and while I very much plan to go on more safaris in my life, just being that close to gorillas who are such a unique animal and so similar to humans, especially in sort of our social nature, I think would just be so, so cool. I would also love to go to Antarctica. I think it's one of the few places that is really just so untarnished by human touch. And, I fear with global warming, there might not be so much opportunity to see it in the future. So maybe I'll prioritize that one in the coming year.
Well, I mean, you have to prioritize it all because the
Yes.
gorillas actually, because of the conservation efforts that have been done in Rwanda, especially, their population, while still endangered, has grown. And I cannot wait until you go to Rwanda because you're right. We share 99% of our DNA with gorillas. And it's just that like 1% that actually makes so much difference. But yet at the same time, when you're out there in the wild, because I just got back from there a few months ago, it is so profound to be that close to such magnificent creatures. And
Yeah.
Antarctica, I just know that you are going to do that in style. I think like we have to get together and then talk about like a whole Antarctica planning trip because there is so
Yes.
much that is involved with that.
I know. I think the thing that puts me off as someone who gets horrifically motion sick is just the way that you get there. But
Oh my God, we have
one
solutions
hill to
for
conquer
you.
at a time.
You're not the only one. So, last question. Where are you headed to next?
Where am I headed to next? I'm going to Cabo this weekend for a little girls' trip with my mom, and then later in August, I am going to Sicily.
Oh my God. Well, I cannot wait to read about that all on Galavant and to catch up and hear about all your experiences because your travels are exceptional. They are goals worthy. And what you're doing with our editorial and our team is just amazing. Like I'm totally speechless. It
No,
is so
I'm so
tough to
happy to
make
be a
yourself
part of the
dependent.
team.
When you make yourself the weakest link of the entire team, that is when I think you've known you've done your job. And so, Gabby, love, love, love having you on the team. And thank you for being our first feature for our team tastemakers.
My pleasure. No, thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for joining us. Stay tuned for the next episode, which is coming in the next few weeks. We'll see you again.